President Obama's recent decision to take the power away from the CIA to carry out lethal drone strikes should go a long way toward undermining a lot of the criticism that the program wasn't transparent enough. Something that left the administration vulnerable to claims from opportunistic politicians playing on the fears of paranoid, ill-informed Americans who tried recently to argue that drone strikes could be turned on Americans on American soil. It's important to remember here that President Obama didn't oversee or condone the rise of America's imperialistic military campaigns, which were, after all, revved up by George W. Bush and his neoconservative backers. Obama didn't start the war on terror, he simply inherited it, and all the war powers that came along with it. If critics want to invoke the Constitution when it comes to drone strikes, then it's important to remember that Obama has a constitutional responsibility to use any legal means at his disposal to protect the American homeland. And like it or not, Congress has clearly given the president the legal authority to carry out lethal drone strikes. And it's also important to remember that no one in the Obama administration ever advocated for the use of drone strikes on American soil. Because after all, they have a lot more means at their disposal to stop terrorist attacks and bring people to justice when they're operating in a clear jurisdiction that America has power over. Imagine how vulnerable President Obama would have been to attacks from the right if just a single terrorist attack would have been successful on American soil. His whole presidency and all the good he's trying to achieve on a number of issues would have been completely in jeopardy. So instead of using the traditional and heavily flawed tactic of stirring up the hornet's nest with ground troop invasions or indiscriminate bombings of suspected terrorist sites, President Obama used surgical drone strikes to keep the American footprint as light as possible while simultaneously decimating al-Qaeda's upper ranks. Do some civilians die as a result of some of these drone strikes? Of course, and that's terrible and tragic and regrettable. But it's also a necessary evil of the complete debacle that President Obama inherited. Think about how far we've come in just 4 years. Bush's response to 9/11 was to invade 2 countries and keep American troops there for more than a decade. He failed over and over again to take out the high-ranking members of al-Qaeda, the big bad wolf, while at the same time swelling their ranks by killing over 100,000 civilians across the region and displacing over 1 million more. The wars of Bush and Cheney cost America more than $1 trillion, directly resulted in the deaths of thousands of American soldiers, and ruined the lives of tens of thousands more who came home maimed or mentally ruined from what they had to see and do. So anyone out there who thinks or has the audacity to say that President Obama carried out the neoconservative war machine or unnecessarily ramped up the drone war needs to check themselves. Obama has ended 2 wars with great discipline and tact while refocusing our military resources on the one conflict, the war on terror, that he, as America's commander-in-chief, was obligated to fight to immediately keep the American people safe. He took matters into his own hands and personally approved almost all of the targeted drone strikes, squarely putting the burden on his own shoulders. The buck stops with President Barack Obama.